Alrighty. Good morning, beloveds. Thank you for being here today for the Wellness Beyond the Clinic conversation. We have uh, this morning, we're going to do a little bit of introduction of All Children Excel Nashville, the Healing Center community work group, opportunities to get involved, as well as discuss ways that wellness is incorporated into our everyday life and goes well beyond what we consider healthcare. My name is Annie, and I'm the chair for the Healing Centered Communities Work Group with All Children Excel Nashville. And we're gathered today because we know wellness is not just about access to healthcare providers. It's about the conditions in which people live, learn, work, and grow. It is also about belonging, safety, and justice. Good morning and welcome, Dr. Rolanda. Um, just sharing how we will be discussing wellness beyond healthcare and do a little bit of introduction of also Excel Nashville. We have I have two organizations that I'm going to use as an example of how they tend to the wellness of community and individuals without it being connected to healthcare. And then we're going to open up for just general discussion. So today we'll explore what contributes to well-being beyond the clinic, and then we'll hear from one partner and another one of them that I've sit on a board for. I wanted to highlight some of their programming where they do a really good job of tending to generational healing as a whole. And then our conversation will center around community, and we'll imagine what a healthier and more just community can look like. To begin in a very grounded way, we're honored to have with us Michael Mills from Journey in Awakening to lead us in a centering practice. Michael, I'm going to hand it over to you.
And thank you all for being here in this space and in the wider collective virtual space. My name is Michael Mills. I'm the founder of Journey in Awakening, and also a co-founder of an organization called Conscious Youth Development and Service. And the nonprofit's mission is to transform youth schools and communities through holistic practices. And it's a gift to be in conversation with all of you, because this is a necessary conversation, because we believe that we have many different vehicles to our own well-being and how we can contribute to our own well-being. Much of it is in our control. So much of what I know in the world right now, we're in a mental health crisis. So the antidote is to help us connect to that space, right? To balance, the ruminating mind and the anxiety and the depression, and also help build community, because we believe that community is a source of well-being. So with that, how we show up in community matters. And when I show up, I am not well in community. That is what I'm influenced, and not that every day is going to be kumbaya and everything is going to be peaches and cream. But there's levels of it where I can just say, hey, today's not my day. I'm not feeling well. That's the authenticity piece and the vulnerability piece showing up in community. And the other piece is like, man, the regulatory systems, our nervous systems are all connected. So with that, and what they think of self-regulation influences co-regulation and community regulation. So the offering, thank you, Annie, for inviting me into this space, is the offering is to bring us into a more grounded space. And for that, one of the modalities that I love to use is my breath. And what I know about the breath and all of my studies and practices is your breath is directly connected to your nervous system. So your breath, that being that bridge, has the ability to influence a parasympathetic nervous system, which is our rest and digest. And it also has the ability to influence our sympathetic nervous system, which is our fight, flight, and freeze. So with that, I'm going to invite us into a practice to help us find a deeper depth within the breath to help us connect to that relaxed state within our bodies, our minds, and our hearts. Without any further ado, I'm going to invite you all to arrive to a comfortable position, whatever that means for you. You're going to notice I use a lot of invitational language. And what that means is nothing is forced, right? And nothing is forced and nothing is, let me just pause here. Is there an issue?
Make sure that we could hear you. Lakita and Dr. Lola, can you all hear him fine?
I can hear just fine.
Okay, great. Thank you. Sorry about that.
So going back into that space, and that's a lot like life. Sometimes you're gonna get that disruption, and you gotta come back to your equilibrium. So before you go into your relaxed state, pause. You don't go there yet, but so man, a little laughter is good for the heart, family. So without any further ado, I'm just going to invite you to arrive to a comfortable position, whatever that means for you. It could be standing, it could be walking, it could be sitting, it could be laying down, and truly, whatever that means for you. And as you arrive to this position, if you feel safe, if you feel comfortable, I invite you to gently close the eyes. And maybe that's not accessible at this moment in time, but if so, maybe you soften the gaze, relax the eyelids. And I invite you to bring all of your awareness inside of your body. And I invite you just to notice your body as it is in this very moment. For those who are just arriving, we are entering into a grounding space just to settle in and to center ourselves. So as you arrive to a comfortable position, eyes open, eyes closed, I'm going to invite you just to scan the body. And just notice what you're holding on to inside of your body in this very moment. Nothing is good or bad, but can I just notice it as it is? And maybe I notice my feet against the floor if they're touching the floor. Maybe I notice my hip bones connected to a chair if I'm sitting in the chair. Maybe I notice the air caressing the skin. And just notice the temperature of the air as it touches the skin. And just to dive in a little bit deeper, can I notice the space, the energy, the sensation just underneath the skin? That's bringing the awareness on the inside of the body. And just to further relax the body, I'm just going to invite you to relax your shoulders away from your ears. Allow your shoulders to be natural. I'm going to invite you to relax the jaw. Relax the cheekbones, the eyebrows, and the eyelids. And I invite you to feel that relaxation travel throughout your body, from head to toe, from the toes back up through the head. Now I invite you to transition your awareness to your breath. I do consider the breath to be a superpower. But first, we have to cultivate the awareness of the breath. And just notice your breath in this natural state right now. Maybe it's fast, maybe it's slow, maybe it's deep, maybe it's shallow. Wherever the breath is in this very moment, just notice it as it is. And if my breath could speak to me in this very moment, what would it say about how I feel in this moment? Your breath isn't just a tool, it is a tool that keeps us alive, but it also shows you and tells you how you're feeling in this moment. Just notice the quality of the breath as it flows in and out of your nostrils. And we're just going to practice a few deep anchor breaths, also known as belly breaths. And what I know about the lungs is the lungs expand in capacity down to the bottom of the rib cage. And when we breathe fully into that capacity, it has the ability to relax our nervous system, to relax our bodies, our minds, and our hearts. So with that, when I say take a deep breath in or inhale in, I'm going to invite you to draw the breath in through your nostrils down to the belly, expanding the belly like a balloon. And as you exhale, releasing the breath from the belly back out the nostrils. And let's begin with the first breath. Let's take a nice deep breath in. And a slow breath out. An option here to place a hand on the belly just to feel the breath move through the lungs. Let's take a deeper breath in. And a slower breath out. You're doing a beautiful job. We'll do that one more time. Let's take a deep breath in. Hold at the peak for a count of 3, 2, 1. Slowly exhale out. Relax the breath. Relax the hands. Relax the entire body. I invite you to connect to your heart right now and ask your heart, how do I feel right now? Begin to softly wiggle the toes, wiggle the fingers. If your eyes are closed, I'm going to gently invite you to open them softly, softly, and softly. And as we arrive back to this space, not trying to rush to the next, but I'm curious to build a little bit more human connection in the virtual space. If you want to just put in the chat 1 or 2 words that describe how you feel in this very moment. I'm just going to pause here and also transition back to Miss Annie Harrison. Thank you very much for this time and space. And I appreciate connecting with all of you.
Thank you so much, Michael. Feel much more present after that grounding. And as we think about wellness beyond the clinic, it's important to acknowledge the forces outside of us that shape our well-being long before we interact with the doctor. There are structural forces like racism, poverty, neighborhood condition, education inequity, food insecurity, access to housing that determine our health long before medical care alone. So today we're here to name and explore some of these barriers honestly and start to think and imagine what a healing centered system could look like, and to listen deeply to wisdom of community and seeing do we build this how do we build these healing centered systems while keeping community at the center of it. This session is part of Alters on Excel Nashville's Healing Centered Community's ongoing commitment to create spaces where wellness is normalized, community voice is elevated, and healing becomes a collective responsibility. Before we get started, I'm going to invite you to take a moment to consider, when you think of wellness, what experiences, situations, and environments come to mind? And then who in our community tend to be most impacted by the barriers that we've made? And as you continue to reflect on these two questions, I am going to take the opportunity to spotlight our two partners and some of the ways that they elevate wellness. The first partner spotlight, is, give me 1 second, I'm pulling up. Nope. There it is. All right. So our very first partner up is the Women of Color Collaborative, and they transform individual strife into communal liberation. So the Women of Color Collaborative was started by two Black women, Nicole Williams and Eric Burnett, and they decided to take their own experience and their own wisdom to provide healing spaces where Black women and girls can have opportunity to heal generational trauma and move to elevate the health of Black women and girls in general. And they've partnered with the mayor's office to bring wellness programming to young girls around the city, to young, yes, 16 to 24-year-old young girls. And their guiding principles include rejecting white supremacy and misogynistic theory, practice, and embodiment. They unapologetically embrace indigenous and edified practices, understanding thought practices. They reclaim their time, talent, and treasure. There's a restoration of autonomy over our physical, spiritual, and emotional health. What I love about the Women of Color Collaborative is their tagline, work, play, build. And I love how all-encompassing it is. It states how it's important to do the work, to play as you're doing the work. And in the process of doing these two, there's a building that happens that happens in community. And then our second partner spotlight is going to be the Conscious Youth Development and Service. And I am going to let Michael share a little bit more about KYDS.
Thank you, Annie. Conscious Youth Development and Service is an organization I co-founded back in 2014, and the pain point that started that organization was an observation of the pain and suffering in our community. The organization is located in New Jersey, and there's an inner city area called Asbury Park, and small city with a lot of big problems, a lot of crime, a lot of drugs, a lot of violence. And it's also has affected my upbringing. So the observation was seeing the pain and suffering in our community, and seeing that pain and suffering cycle from generation to generation and with no clear solution. And on the better days, I'm going out, I'm protesting, I'm trying to dismantle the system, which is great. But I see that those same folks who are dismantling the system also causing pain in their community, also have holding a lot of pain inside their hearts. And I'm seeing a lot of people on an unhealthy side is just really trying to cope and numb. Yeah, I'm trying to just numb it away. I want to turn to the bottle, or drinking, smoking, or unhealthy activities in which we know adverse childhood experiences are more likely, if I don't have healthy coping skills, to turn to those risky behaviors. So that observation was very clear. But actually at that same time, I was changing myself, and I was becoming more of that solution where it's like, okay, I'm not going to go out and hide my emotions going out to the club. I'm not going out this, that, and the third and just going to drink it away. I'm going to seek healthier outlets. I started healing and transforming my body, right? Fasting, cleansing, and really cleaning up my diet. And I started cleaning up my mind and those negative thoughts. It was thinking is what I tell a lot of my youth, and cleaning up my mind through the practice of mindfulness, just being still and being present with my mind. And finally started healing my heart through these healing practices, healing centered practices, the power of the breath, the power of sound, and different modalities to help me come back to myself. And there were layers and layers that I was healing. And at the time, I was working with youth in the community. And I was, man, me and the other co-founder, we had an idea. It's like, hey, what if we just started bringing this to our youth, right? And not the typical constructs that we're taught to do with our youth, which is nothing good or bad, but I think there's a lot of pain in our systems that perpetuate more pain in the systems. For example, when I'm mentoring youth in a social work setting, when I'm doing that behavioral mentorship, I'm working with them for X amount of months, X amount of time, and after that time, by law, I have to just stop all services, and I cannot have any contact with that child for 2 years. And we know that these children suffer from abandonment. We know that these kids have great individuals in their lives, and next thing you know, they're gone. And I was like, I don't want to be another example of that, right? So, we started shifting and changing, and changing how we work with the youth and showing them that they have something great inside, but they also have the power to heal and transform themselves. And so many of their youth said, hey, no one ever told me that. Right? No one ever told me that I have power within myself. I have the power to regulate my nervous system. I have the power to have this healthy conversation. I have the power to say, hey, this is not okay. Right? And I'm now vocalizing it, but that power that we instilled in them became the obligation that started this organization back in 2014. And it started off as a passion project. Me and the other co-founder, we're running after our day jobs into the community, doing after school programs, holding community meditation sits, and just helping transform the community. And there was a tipping point where it's like, oh, okay, this can no longer be, our side hustle. I don't want to live the best moments of my life in the evening after work. I want to make that a part of everything I do, each and every day, each and every breath. So we took a leap of love in 2017, left our full-time jobs when the world thought we were crazy, leaving that good pension, leaving the benefits goodbye. But hey, we wanted to live in our hearts and not live in safety. We wanted to really live in that passion. So we left our jobs in 2017, and lo and behold, we started integrating our programs in school systems, what's now called social emotional learning, mindfulness, restorative practices, and just love and connection, bringing it into school systems, integrating a culture of wellness in schools, not just for youth, but for educators too, for parents and community. So since 2017 here in New Jersey, we've been in over 200 school systems and buildings throughout the state of New Jersey, and impacting over 50,000 youth and educators. And what's unique and beautiful about our organization right now is that we now have a community wellness center in Asbury Park, in the inner city, and we believe that inner peace shouldn't cost a thing. So this wellness center is accessible to the larger and broader community, especially those who need it the most, right? And it's not about dollars, it's really about transformation for us and helping individuals awaken to the greatness and come back to themselves, right? So that's a little bit about conscious youth development and service. That's conscious with a K. KYDS, and we spell two words wrong on purpose. It's my running joke for the educators in this space, especially for the doctors. But yeah, that's a little bit about our organization. You can find out more on our website, consciouswithak.org. So thank you for this time.
Thank you so much for the Women of Color Collaborative and for Conscious Youth Development and Service for being part of the solution. And I am going to invite those, since we're a very intimate group this morning, I'm going to invite you all to also share some other ways that you tend to wellness beyond outside of the medical world. But right before we do that, I wanted to share a little bit about All Children Excel Nashville. All Children Excel Nashville is a collective group of, we would call ourselves experts, but really what we are is passionate about children. We come together to promote positive childhood experiences and prevent and mitigate the lifelong impact of childhood adversity to improve the safety, health, and prosperity of our community. What we envision is a safe and stable and nurturing Nashville where all children and families can thrive. The collective does most of its direct work through 4 work groups. The Healing Centered Community Work Group, which is me, and we focus mostly on how do we have the conversations. Well, the next 3 years with the strategic plan we currently have, the idea is to normalize wellness and when we were brainstorming, it's like, okay, how do we want to tackle the strategic plan? The idea was if we're not talking about it, then we're not prioritizing it. So then we wanted to make wellness part of the conversation so that we can prioritize it for the community. And then we have our parent and community engagement work group, and our parent and community engagement work group focuses on educating families and the community as a whole. So they actually have an event on Saturday, an ADHD awareness event on Saturday at the Coleman Community Center between 10 and 2:30. And that event specifically for anyone connected to ADHD in whatever type of way. And our third work group is our PED Spaces, and PED Spaces is the work group that focuses on introducing some of these PACEs ideas. So promoting positive childhood experiences in the healthcare field specifically, because we know while healthcare isn't the only place where wellness happens, it still happens there. And we want to make sure that we're all inclusive and holistic. And our final work group is our policy collaborative, which really works to, the co-chair do a really good job at keeping us abreast of the Nashville legislations and how some of the ones that will positively or negatively impact children and families in the community. And they then pretty much mobilize the collective as a whole to either support or perhaps educate the public on the ways a particular policy may negatively impact. So we focus most of our policy work around education. We don't actually do any lobbying because we are not officially a legal entity and we can't do that. So those are a little bit about All Children Excel Nashville. I will drop Alexis's and Nautica's email in the chat if any of you all want to learn more about any of the work groups that I just shared. You can send an email to either one and they'll give you all an onboarding, and then you can choose which work group you want to work with. And just to let you know, it's a very light lift for most of the work groups. And Lakita actually is in our parent and community engagement work group. And the workload is shared amongst work groups. So we would love to have you if you want to have a deeper connection with All Children Excel Nashville. With that said, I'm going to jump right into the conversation. So now we've already spotlighted our partners. We've thanked them for their work in the community. And what we want to do now is open it up for discussion. So we want to spend the last 27 minutes of our time together just really talking about Structural barriers that most impact our communities, how wellness could look if systems in Nashville supported people's daily life, and where do you see joy, resilience, and community-led wellness that we can build on, and how we as a collective can start shifting the condition that shape health. So before we get started with any of that, the question I want to offer is, right now in our current situation, what feels most urgent for us to address together? When we're thinking about wellness, what feels most urgent for us to address together? I'm going to go on mute because I've been speaking most of the time, and I'm going to open it up to you all. If it's possible, feel free to come off mute and share whatever you're thinking. So Lakita shared that self-care feels most urgent in this moment to address. And I want to say I want to second that, because much like Michael shared earlier about the origins of KYDS, what I find is when you have giving hearts, those giving hearts tends to forget that their heart needs to be tended to as well. So when I think of self-care, I think of it as in a holistic way, in that, yes, it is getting a massage, but for me, it also looks like my gratitude practice every morning. So, because I know my gratitude practice, when it's felt, when it's embodied, it starts to rewire my brain to see the joy, the love, and the positivity throughout the day. So starting my day with my gratitude practice helps support my well-being throughout the day. Anybody else want to share some other ways that they elevate their self-care? Before you share, Lakita added that self-care is incredibly important, yet many of us overlook it because everything around us feels so urgent and demanding. We often convince ourselves that we don't need rest, when in reality, taking time to recharge allows us to show up fully at home, at work, and for the people who depend on us. Definitely want to elevate that. I will say, because you brought up the urgency, I want to make the connection back to white supremacy. I think when we think about dominant culture attributes, urgency is one of them. We make everything important. We make everything important so that everything is urgent. So we never really get to the root of what the problem is. If we can't get to the root of the problem will never get solved. So urgency is one of the ways that I think urgency adds noise. And I'm going to use Lakita as an example. Being in a public place and it's loud, if I unmute and start to talk, that's going to throw off the energy of the space because of the noise and all of that. So what I want to say is, when everything is urgent, it creates noise and it doesn't allow us to really ground and get clarity on what really is causing all of those. The analogy I like to use is, it's like when you think about a tree, so many branches, and then off of those branches, there are more branches. And off of these branches, there's a whole bunch of leaves. So when I think about noise, the noise is if you count all the branches, it's all the you can get lost in all of the branches and the leaves. But the reason why I make an intention to start all of community gatherings, meetings, with a grounding practice, it offers the opportunity for us to really get quiet and ground ourselves in the presence. Because when we do that, you start to formulate the full tree. And then eventually you can see the trunk that leads you to the roots. And if you can get to the root of the issue, you can really start to really nurse the soil. So that if you can nurse the soil, the roots are getting the proper nutrients and then it spreads to the tree, as opposed to tending to just the branch, which eventually whatever disease is in the roots comes out in the tree, and it reinfects that branch that we're treating. So since we brought up urgency,
I have just something to add.
yes,
Good morning.
good morning.
What a wonderful way to start this day. But when I think about the question that you asked, I think in terms of urgency, we need to not internalize problems that we did not create, nor do we have the burden to necessarily fix on our own. And when I say not internalizing that, one way that I do that is I say forgive them in advance for their ignorance. Because many people, that saying hindsight is 2020. They'll come to their moment of realization and epiphany, you know. But as we walk through our journey, we need to forgive them in advance for their ignorance so that we don't internalize hate and act from that space. The other thing I remember is my reflection. Who am I and how do I show up? And the legacy of what I carry in my reflection. And so one thing that I say is credibility is in the heart. And when I say credibility is in the heart, from our heart, our dialogue and our actions flow. So remembering to be a reflection of that. When I'm not here, what will they say? When I'm in the room, what will they say? When, you know what I'm saying? So that's one way that I kind of ground myself. So when we think about the urgency right now, it is that stabilizing foundation of remembering where you are and remembering not to internalize those problems as your own or make them personal as a direct attack on you. That's all I wanted to add. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful connection. And as you were speaking, I thought about, oh, it just left. I made a connection as you're speaking and I just lost it. Maybe it'll come back to me. Anyone else want to add to the conversation?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, my name is Lisa Sarnikar. I am from an organization called Uphold. I'm actually located in New York. And so I thought this was like pretty interesting. So I wanted to come because our organization, we're like an in-home medical group, but we also, my job specifically is to address patient needs that are non-medical. So, we talk about SDOH needs, which is social determinants of health. And as you all know, and, I think a lot of times the barriers that our patients have is not even medical. It's like they don't have food, or they're not sure about where they're going to live, or they can't afford to pay their bills, or they're having substance abuse issues that keep them in the hospital, or all these other things. So I think in New York specifically, I think it's a countrywide thing, but in New York specifically, we're like going through such a housing crisis, and it's one of the biggest destabilizers for our patients. And like that's like what most of our patients are worried about. And the other huge factor, especially after COVID, has been substance abuse. And it's like, I think COVID kind of exasperated a thing that was already there, but like it was so unexpected for a lot of people. I think that, the dealing with the loneliness or the hurt or, all the other things has increased substance use. And a lot of our patients, we can't even get to the medical treatment because they're like, they're going into the ER for some sort of overdose or some sort of reaction to whatever substance they're taking. So I think those are like such big barriers. And it's like, at least in New York, it's really, really hard to, like, on my job, I'm pretty much the only one that does my job in my area. And it's just really hard because, I can't magically make housing appear. A lot of housing lists are like closed, or there's a really long waiting list. And sometimes I feel kind of helpless when I'm helping patients, because it's like, I don't know what else to tell you. I can't really find housing. So yeah, that is one of the biggest things that we're struggling with over here. That's all. Thank you for listening.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing. And I want to make a connection between the three shares. Lakita talks about self-care. One of the biggest things that Dr. Rolanda shared was about not internalizing problems that you didn't create. And then, is it Unalisa?
It's Unalisa.
Unalisa, thank you so much.
Yeah.
And Unalisa mentioned the issues, most of the issues she's dealing with the patients are things that there's not much she can do about. And I want to bring it all together because Dr. Rolanda made a valid point. One of the biggest ways to care for yourself, and this is the self-care piece, is to make sure that you're not internalizing these programs. As human beings who, again, we talked about, we're here because we care about community and community health as a whole. And we wouldn't be doing what we're doing if we didn't genuinely care about others. And I think the balance in the brilliance in not internalizing problems that we didn't create. And then I'll add another step to then figuring out for yourself, what does it look like to care for yourself by not internalizing problems that you didn't create and still engage and be part of creating what a solution can look like. And yes.
Sorry.
Yep, I just read hop in.
Sorry. Yeah, no, I that was another point I was thinking about, but I just forgot to mention it. So I'm glad you kind of tied it all together, because I think like people of color, more specifically, I think Black people, but it applies to all marginalized groups in general, to be honest. But I think like we've been so conditioned to make other people feel comfortable that it's so hard to like not take on problems that are not our own. And I think that was a lovely reminder, because it's not my place to educate you about something that you should clearly know about. If I feel to educate you in that moment, then great, sure. But like, I think, it's really, really hard sitting in that discomfort when we've been conditioned as a society for generations. Not like, oh, that's how my family taught me. It's like this was survival from the inception of like our ancestors being taken out of Africa. It's like we that has become not just like a social conditioning, but it's become part of our genetic makeup. So it's really, really hard to undo something like that. But something that I think about, because not only I feel like I do this, but as a woman, that's a other factor. Like, women are also made to feel like we have to make everyone feel comfortable so that people accept us, right? Otherwise you're like, a B word. And like all of that. But so I think one of the things that has helped me, because I struggle with this a lot, was like really trying to internalize that, like, I am only responsible for me, and like that person has to be responsible for them. And most of the time, people are so very selfish that they're really only thinking about themselves. They're not thinking about you. They're not thinking about your comfort. They're not thinking about, oh, I'm putting you in an awkward position. So you it's like not necessarily tit for tat, but you kind of have to like take on a similar mindset in most situations. It's like you have to protect yourself and do what's best for yourself. So yeah, just wanted to say that was a good point. That's also part of self-care, like just ignoring the noise.
Yeah. Thank you so much. As you're sharing, one offering that I have is I just recently finished reading the book Break the Cycle, an intergenerational guide to healing. And it's Break the Cycle. It's by Dr. Marielle Bouquet. That's the beginning. It's an intergenerational guide to healing trauma. There you go. I found the words. And some of what you shared, Unalisa, is there's Dr. Bouquet in the book does a really good job bringing it together. And it also reconnects to like problems that are created that aren't ours to own. Wellness and care in general is so layered. I think I think what's helpful for me as I engage is to try not to demonize the people who are impacted by the systems and the problems that is hurting them. And I also try to understand people's capacity. To your point about self-care. Self-care for me is about deepening my awareness of myself, because the more I know myself, the more I know my capacity. And your grounding questions, like who am I and how do I want to show up, are very similar to the questions that I ask myself. It's like, can I show up with love in this moment? And if my answer is no, then I'm going to remove myself from the situation, because I have done the work of understanding myself well enough to know that when my capacity does not dictate, I will not be helpful in this situation. And I think what I'm hoping to do with the work group is when I think of like embedding healing centered systems of care, that's at the root of it. Can we know ourselves well enough as individuals, as people, as communities, so that we can say stop, we can say pause when we realize that we are the ones causing the harm. And as we're wrapping up the conversation, one question that I want to have is, because I'm action oriented, I'm always thinking about, okay, how will this conversation now help drive my actions for the rest of the day, maybe for the rest of the month, who knows? What is one insight from today that feels important for you to carry forward? And I'll lead by example. And I want to say what is going to stay with me deeply, not just today. And I think this is probably one of those sentences that's going to stay with me as I continue to do this work in general, is remember not to internalize problems that you did not create. So that insight for me is going to have a lifelong impact. So thank you for that, Dr. Rolando. And I open it up for you all to share. What's one insight from today that you feel is important to carry forward?
Yeah, I want to agree with you. I think that is such a good line. Put that on a t-shirt somewhere. I think that it's so applicable to just life in general and not even just like healthcare or anything, that's what I'm going to take away too. So thank you for that. And like, to me, that includes doing that is like part of self-care. So I appreciate that.
I think recognizing that the collective efforts to have wraparound resources for those that need them in this time of uncertainty and where people feel most unstable is definitely connecting to like events like this, or seeking where we can connect, where we can learn about other community partners that are out there, boots on the ground, really touching hands and meeting community members where they are, in their healing journey as they're navigating the challenges that we're experiencing right now. So yeah, I think the insight is just to continue to seek organizations and community partnerships that we can do the heavy lifting together.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And Lakita shared to be true to you and not to the learned behaviors of past systemic thinking. Oh, that's a word right there. Thank you so much for participating. I am dropping 2 emails in the chat, and those 2 emails are ways to stay connected with this conversation. The Healing Center Community Work Group specifically tries to have these wellness conversations once a quarter. So I believe every other month. And however, we'll do our best to communicate the next one, I believe, which will be in either January or February. I want to say thank you for being part of the conversation and for your commitment to a healthier and more just world. We appreciate and want to give a shout out to Journey and Awakening and the Women of Color Collaborative for elevating wellness in our communities. And we hope you'll join us for the next healing centered conversation. Until then, we're going to do a 1-word closing round. What? How? Maybe not. Yes. How are you leaving today? 1-word closing round. Oof. Lakita says freedom. Michael says connected. Dr. Rolanda says peace. Again, a big thank you for being with us today. We look forward to having you until next time. I will send the partner spotlight information via email as a follow-up in case you want to connect with them. Please stay connected. I'm going to say until next time, grow in love and be in love. Wishing you all well.
Thank you.